So lessons from real sport, there was a couple there already. I think, as with everything, you realise luck is got so much to play in the outcome of anything you do. And of course, important to be 100% ready. You know, make sure that you're working incredibly hard so when the opportunities do come along, you're ready to maximize and capitalize on them. But what I've learned from the amount of founders who I've spoken to who exited their companies or were acquired at that time is there is no blueprint to success. There is so much luck in anyone who's had a bit of success. And for me, it was amazing. You know, at the point when we sold Real Sport, I had, you know, big personal debts. It did not come from a situation of having any money whatsoever. So for me, the luck was getting this opportunity to, you know, help the parents with their mortgage and do all other, you know, other things, which is amazing for me. But I appreciate how much luck we had. You know, if we hadn't been working with Gfinity in that way, if we hadn't decided to pivot into esports, but we also had bad luck. We had some really, really bad luck. There's a really interesting situation that we had when we were discovering that esports world, is we wanted to run esports tournaments for all of the Premier League football clubs. And we were going to run a series of 20 tournaments, one for each Premier League team. And at the end of each tournament, the winner of that specific competition would go on to become a signed FIFA player by that football club. And we were working very, very closely with Everton Football Club. We were at very, very late contractual stage. We had everything done. We had a situation where EA didn't want us to use their trademark within our terms and conditions. That was the only sticking point that the commercial lawyers had. The commercial lawyers agreed to doing it without actually having EA's name within the T's and C's. We were good to go. You know, everything was there ready for us. So there was no problems whatsoever. The way that we were verifying the outcomes of the matches within the tournaments, because we were running this globally at mass scale, is EA used to have an open API where you could see if people were signed in and playing as their sort of gamer profiles, you could see the outcomes of the matches they could have. So we could verify everything independently. We were all good to go. 2 days before the first tournament with Everton, and we had sort of letters of intent from Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City. We were going to really go and push this out. EA pulled the API. So we ended up having to, within 48 hours, try and create a manual verification system where we're having people take pictures of their results and both of them having to upload them at the same time. The whole thing fell apart. And you know, that could have been the sort of thing which, if we managed to pull that off, the exit could have been 10 times bigger. You know, so there's good and bad luck with all these things, and you've just got to appreciate that that is life. But yeah, you know, it's just interesting to see. I got some amazing advice from an NBA player. We used to run loads of content for a few of the NBA teams whilst we were operating Real Sport. And for the NBA, for those who don't know, you have an 82 game season as standard. And if you go to the end of the playoffs, you might have 115 games in a season. And the season does not run for that long. So they're playing at least sort of every 2 to 3 days, sometimes 3 nights in a row. It's really, really intense, not just physically, but mentally. And some of the best advice I got, and I really apply this to entrepreneurialism as well, is when you win, don't get too high. And when you lose, don't get too low, because the next game's just around the corner. And it's the exact same with entrepreneurialism. I think when you're in any world where you're trying to make it, and the odds are against you and very few people get through, it's a very similar mindset. So I've always found that entrepreneurs, actors, athletes, comedians, they all have this same sort of, you know, we're in this together. Very few of us are going to make it. We only understand each other's journey, but that was really, really useful feedback for me. In terms of lessons about investment, one of the big things I learned is people talk a lot about VCs. VCs are good and bad, but at least they have codes of conduct to follow. Angel investors can also be demon investors as well. We hear about angel investors, we don't often hear the term devil investors, but they can happen as well. When you have a good investor who's strategic, who can help you out with things, you know, it's absolutely amazing, but due diligence needs to go both ways. You've got to make sure that you know, all the investors that you've got on board are going to be the right people to guide you through things. And what I mean by that, you know, obviously Nigel, unbelievable investor, and that was great, but we did have other investors who now knowing what I know and now being an angel investor myself, considering the fact that me and my co-founder had come from a situation where we didn't have much money and didn't really come from anything and both were in precarious financial situations, I believe what our VCs should have done was allow us to liquidate significant enough of our own shareholding that we were no longer worried about our personal finances and that we could keep on building the business. But by not giving us that out, the drive, the lure of that acquisition and securing our own financial well-being was too high. So, lots of lessons to be learned there. Again, we talk about luck. Some of the good luck we had is Real Sport was made up of about 20,000 contributors, content contributors globally. So we learnt that you can build a culture remote and globally. And now coming into Connected, where we have a team which is distributed London, Krakow, Manchester, Mumbai, and we're very, very open with where we hire people. So that's also great luck. So when I came into running Connected, 3 weeks after we launched, global lockdown, not going to see anyone for who knew how long, I was very well versed in building something remotely. So again, there's a bit of luck there. And then the last lesson in terms of what I really got from Real Sport, or last sort of key lesson here, is I should have rewarded more of my team in terms of equity. I rewarded my core team in terms of equity at Real Sport, and that was an amazing thing for me personally to see some of my core staff get a deposit for their own house, get a deposit, be able to get their first home at the age of 24, 25 it was unbelievable for me to see, and genuinely the thing that drives me now with my new business is wanting to make all my team millionaires, genuinely. But I wish I'd done it for more of them. I wish I'd brought everyone onto equity options because it's a win-win. They'll win on exit, but also people are so much more driven when this is more than a job because, as I'm sure everyone knows, right, the more you earn from an income perspective, the more your outgoings increase. I know very few people who start to earn more money on a monthly basis and have more money in the bank account, in any real way. The real way to get capital is equity. So for me now, Connected, every single person is on a share option scheme, and that was something that I learned. I wish I'd put everyone on it before, but also, previously I was a co-founder, had less equity to play with. I'm now a solo founder, have more equity to play with, so swings and roundabouts. And those are the lessons from Real Sport.
Great insight, Roy. I have a couple of questions as always, but I'm sure others on the session must do. Did you tell us what your education was? So I had assumed that you were a tech guy, but I don't think you are. I think, was it business?
Yeah, no, I'm an imposter, not a tech guy, unfortunately. No, my background is, just GCSEs, A-levels, then managed to get somehow into university at that point in my life, just managed to scrape through, got into to Nottingham to do an undergrad in politics and then a master's in international conflict studies. So my education is nothing to do with the world of business. I had zero, other than instinctive, but zero technical financial nous whatsoever. For me, entrepreneurialism came from the fact that I didn't want to work for someone. I wanted to build something. I saw a problem that I had and I saw an opportunity, but it's taken me a long time, I think, to become a polished entrepreneur because I really started from nothing in that sense.
Well done. My second question was, do you think in the US, if you were in the US, it would be different? You talked about how you were struggling to even pay the bills at times. Do you think if you had been in the US, it would have been more supportive for you?
Absolutely. I think the paths to entrepreneurialism and the infrastructure for how you support entrepreneurs along their journey is so much stronger in the US than it is in the UK. Ultimately, I think it comes down to the way that we treat failure in the UK versus in the US. In the US, you can't make it unless you've been bankrupt twice, right? That's almost like a badge of honor. If you file Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US, it's just something which happens in business. If you have to wind up a company in the UK, you can be stricken off as a director, you can't do the same things again. The way that we see failure, the way that we treat risk here is so structurally different to the way that we treat risk in the US. It's just a totally different ballgame. I think if you do have the opportunity to go and get US funding and launch in the US market, it's not a bad thing to do.
Hey!